Scrutiny. Section 61 talks about scrutiny. So as per section 61(1), the proper officer may, see everywhere proper officer. So we have already seen the definition of proper officer. Who is the proper officer? So you have to understand, and whenever you receive a notice, see whether the proper officer only has issued the notice. So proper officer may scrutinize the return and related particulars furnished by the registered person. So scrutiny can be done only for the registered person to verify the correctness of the return and inform him of the discrepancies noticed, if any, in such manner as may be prescribed. Now the scope of scrutiny is restricted, first of all, to registered person only, and it is restricted only to scrutinize the returns. It cannot go beyond scrutinizing the return, and notice should be issued in ASMT 10. You see nowadays, most of the notices where they say your GSTR 1, GSTR 3B difference, 2B, 3B difference, most of these notices what you receive are not in ASMT 10. It is a general notice what they send or general letter what they send. There is a concept called pre-consultation. In service tax, there was something called pre-consultation. So that they are actually continuing to GST also, where before sending a show cause notice, they send you a letter and get the clarification from you. If you satisfy the officer, say show cause notice is not issued. So basically it is a pre-consultation process. So as per law, as per GST law, there is no concept of pre-consultation. They have to issue notice for scrutiny if it is a scrutiny and in ASMT 10, which I have hardly seen. Not even 10% of the cases ASMT 10 is issued. Now whether if any notice which comes without a ASMT 10, without an ASMT 10 form, whether it is a valid or invalid return notice, that I have got a separate slide for that. So let us not discuss on that. So scrutiny of return restricted to registered person and scrutiny only of returns. So scrutiny, proper officer, we have already read the definition. So superintendent of central tax has been designated as the proper officer for the purpose of scrutiny under section 61. So this is covered in circular number 3 dated 5th July 2017, where superintendent of central tax has been designated as the proper officer. And in state government, each state government will have a circular and they will designate their own proper officers for the state taxpayers. So registered person means a person who is registered under section 25 but does not include a person having a unique identity number. Now meaning of return, that also we have seen, return prescribed under section 39. So it can be returned under section 39, 40, 44 or 45. So on 3B, first return, annual return, final return. So is there any return under section 40, first return? Is there any return prescribed as first return under section 40?
Yes. Yes, sir.
What is that form? GSTR? Is there any form number like 3B? Is there any first return form?
There is no separate form. In the first period, after commencing the business, you have to include the turnover that has been incurred till you get the registration. That's all.
So there is no return prescribed. What they say is your first return should cover the details of when you are liable to be registered till the time you have registered. It should be, the transaction should be covered. So that is the first return. So tax period means a period for which the return is required to be furnished. So it can be a tax period, can be a month, or tax period for quarterly filers can be a quarter also. So key point, section 61, that is scrutiny. So how different is GST scrutiny compared to income tax scrutiny? Is the income tax scrutiny narrow, wider than GST, or GST scrutiny is wider than income tax? Anyone?
This is a question to the audience, right?
Yes, yes.
Sir, I don't have actual answer, but I believe this one, if you start, the other will automatically follow. So both are equal. That's my.
See, income tax scrutiny is a much wider concept, because income tax scrutiny, they can ask you any detail on your maybe financials or on your income tax returns. They can ask you details based on so many facts. Whereas in GST scrutiny, it is restricted only to your return details. So they cannot take anything which is outside your return. So if they find any discrepancy in your return, that only they can ask. They cannot ask anything beyond your return. And in GST, the provisions is applicable only to registered person. Notice can be issued provided return has been filed. So if you have not filed your return, there cannot be a notice under Section 61. So for the purpose of issuing notice under Section 61, you should file your return. And there is no manner, there is no procedure mentioned in the Act how the scrutiny will be done. And selection of the return for scrutiny would be for verification of correctness of. So basically, it is just restricted to your return and not beyond that. So that you have to doubly ensure, if it is a notice issued under Section 61, it should be only restricted to the return. It cannot go outside the return. If they say something is not matching with your return, then it is fine. But if your return is not filed, or if anything which is not connected to your return, they are not supposed to issue any notice under Section 61. Once a return has been selected for scrutiny, only then proper officer would be able to scrutinize return. So your return has to be selected. So it has to be a system generated trigger, and then only a proper officer can scrutinize the return. Scrutiny of return to be carried out on the basis of information available with the proper officer. So whatever information available with the proper officer, only he can do the scrutiny. So he cannot just randomly take return and say, you give those details, we want to check. He should have some information in hand that there is a discrepancy. So mind you, if your 2B and 3B is not matching, then he has got that information in hand, he can ask the details. But if everything is matching, he cannot just tell you to get the details and he wants to verify. He has to have the information that there is a discrepancy, and Section 61 does not allow proper officer to assess and create demand against registered person. So suppose if there is a discrepancy and there is a liability, Section 61 doesn't have the provision to issue or collect tax through a notice. So this is only a process to do a scrutiny. So once if there is a liability generated or created because of this scrutiny, then notice has to be issued under Section 73 or 74 only, and Section 61 cannot issue a show cause notice for demand. I hope I am clear in that. So procedure of scrutiny: PO may scrutinize the returns and related particulars filed by the registered person to verify the correctness of return. PO may issue discrepancy notice in ASMT 10, informing the discrepancy noticed in returns, if any. Taxpayer has to give a reply within 30 days. So he has to give a reply in 30 days whether any objection is there or he is ready to pay the tax. Taxpayer may accept the discrepancy and pay the tax due and furnish the explanation of the taxpayer in ASMT 11. If reply furnished is satisfactory, PO will close and issue an order in ASMT 12. So if there is some reply which taxpayer gives and there is no tax liability, then ASMT 12 will be issued and PO will close. If there is a liability, then maybe the liability will be paid without issue of show cause notice or a show cause notice will be issued. If the taxpayer does not furnish a satisfactory reply within 30 days of the notice or does not take corrective action in his return for that month in which discrepancy is accepted, PO may initiate action including, so if there is any discrepancy and the proper officer is not satisfied, he may take action under section 65 for departmental audit, 66 special audit, or 67 inspection, search and seizure, or issue notice under section 73 or 74. Now there is an anomaly actually between section 61 and section 39. So section 61 is for scrutiny and section 39 is for return filing. Now, if you see section 61, what it says is, if there is any discrepancy, the proper officer will intimate the discrepancy and within 30 days, the registered person has to give a reply and in the subsequent return, he has to rectify those mistakes and pay the tax if there is a liability. That is what section 61 says. Now, what section 39 says is, you have got time to make a correction if you have done any mistake, to make a correction till the month of September of the subsequent year, financial year. So you have got time if financial year 21-22, if you have done a mistake, you have got time till September 2022 to rectify those mistakes. So 61 section says you have to rectify within 30 days. In 30 days you have to give a reply and immediately the subsequent month you have to rectify. Whereas section 39, it says you should rectify, it gives an option for you to rectify till September. So there is an anomaly there.
Sir, I think now it's the 30th November, right? After finance.
No, still not. Still it is there. It may take another 1 year for it to be 30th November because it has to be passed by, first of all, the president has to give an accent in for the central act and all the states have to pass in assembly. So it will take another 6 to 9 months or definitely a year for this to come into effect.
Sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
But section 39 is otherwise done by way of scrutiny, no, sir, whereas section 61 is scrutiny. No. So there will be the difference in dates.
No, exactly. That's what I'm doing. See, section 39 gives you, see, it gives you an option actually. See, it says other than scrutiny audit. So for scrutiny, they give you this much time, but for normal return, they give you till September time. So I'm just trying, there is an anomaly there. So even here also, when an option is given, there also they should have given an option to extend it till September. So just see, it's not, I'm not telling it is bad in law. There is an anomaly. So here you're telling within 30 days, here you're telling within September.
Sir, just to get the better clarity on this assessment. So what I understand from your reading is that, so based on the information which we have furnished, maybe by way of written or by way of statement like GST or one or other than the written, based on which only the proper officer can issue a notice. Right?
Correct.
They can't go beyond that one.
Correct.
So you're telling, right? Say, for example, I have 11 invoices. I provided 10 invoices in the GST one.
And also, we'll do one thing. We'll take up the question because the flow will go. So what I'm telling is, you note down the question.
Okay.
The assessment topic when we complete, then we'll take up the questions. So it can be at least 5-10 minutes we can spend for that. Otherwise, here, that again the questions will start and then we'll lose the flow.
Understood, sir. Understood.
Yeah, sorry, sir. So provided that no rectification or any omission, so where was I? So suppose if there is a liability under section 61, that is the discrepancy was noticed and the taxpayer decided to pay the tax. So is DRC 03 the only method to pay tax? So DRC 3 is a challan to pay taxes. So suppose if there is any discrepancy noticed and there is a tax liability which has to be paid, is DRC 03 the only method to pay the tax? Anyone? Anyone want to answer? So DRC, see DRC 03 also it can be paid, or it can be paid through your normal GSTR 3B route also. So it is not necessary it has to be paid only through DRC 03. If there is any tax liability, he can always discharge the tax liability through the GSTR 3B route also. So it is not compulsory, it should be under DRC 03 form. So we have completed scrutiny. Now we go to section 62, which is on assessment of non-filers of return, which is now, I think everybody would have seen this. So